Your choice reveals a recurring pattern, not because a fox is magic, but because the mind is never random when it is drawn to a symbol. In a Jungian test like this, the image that pulls you first often reflects a hidden style of feeling, protecting, adapting, and surviving. Jung's test was never really about objects alone. It was about the quiet bridge between what you see outside and what is already moving inside you. A fox is not just a fox here. It can become instinct, caution, charm, intelligence, disguise, emotional timing, even the part of you that learned how to stay warm in a cold world without letting anyone see how much warmth you needed. That is why this matters more than it seems. What you choose may reveal how you read people, how you protect your heart, how you hide your sensitivity, and what kind of emotional intelligence has been growing in you without a name. So do not overthink it. Just look at the 5 foxes and choose the one that calls you first. Pick from 1 to 5 and stay with your first impression. Do not change it to make it make sense. The unconscious speaks faster than logic, and your first pull usually tells the truth before the mind starts editing it. If one fox feels strangely familiar, calming, intense, distant, noble, or alive, trust that reaction. There is a reason your attention moved there before your explanation did. And stay with me until the end, because I am going to connect your choice to something concrete, practical, and deeply personal, a step you can actually take today in your real life. Only at the end will the deeper meaning become clear, because the symbol comes first and the understanding follows after. But before we go any further, pause the video for a moment and leave your name in the comments, because when you place your name beside your choice, this test stops being just content and starts becoming a mirror. If you chose option 1, this usually happens when your emotional intelligence was born in heat, not in comfort. Stay with me, because this choice is rarely about confidence alone. It often appears when a person learned very early to read tension, shifts in tone, small dangers and unspoken moods before anyone else noticed them. In simple Jungian language, this fox carries the light of instinct and the shadow of alarm. The light says, I can feel what is real before it is spoken. The shadow says, I must stay ready because peace can change without warning. Pay attention to this because both parts may live in you at the same time. On the surface, option 1 looks bold, fiery, direct, even magnetic. But beneath that bright energy, there is often an archetype that formed around survival. The warrior, the guardian, the one who moves fast and feels faster. This does not mean something is wrong with you. It means your psyche may have turned sensitivity into strength. That is a gift. You notice what others miss. You sense emotional weather quickly. You can protect, respond, and act with remarkable clarity. But here is the twist. A gift shaped by pressure can keep acting like pressure is still present. That is where the shadow enters. You may react to what reminds you of danger, not only to what is dangerous now. You may call it intuition, when sometimes it is memory wearing instinct's face. Stay with me here. This is important. Fire keeps you alive, but it can also keep you restless. Think of a simple everyday moment. You send a message to someone you care about. They answer with fewer words than usual. Nothing dramatic has happened yet, but inside you something rises immediately. Your mind starts scanning. Your body tightens. You replay the last conversation. You search for the hidden shift. You prepare for distance before distance has even arrived. This is option 1 in daily life. Fast feeling, fast interpretation, fast defense. And yet, inside all of that speed, there is often a deep need that almost never gets named. The need is not for more intensity. The need is for safety, for calm that does not disappear, for closeness that does not suddenly burn. In Jungian terms, the persona may look strong, passionate, decisive, hard to ignore, but the shadow often holds the exhausted part that wants permission to stop scanning and simply receive. That is why this fox is so powerful. It reveals hidden emotional intelligence, yes, but also the wound that taught you to sharpen it. So ask yourself something deeper. When did you learn that being ready mattered more than being at ease? When did alertness become love's language? When did your heart decide that it had to arrive first, feel first, defend first? Do not judge the answer, just notice it, because awareness is already a change in direction. There is another layer, so do not leave this too quickly. Many people with this pattern are praised for their intensity. Others say they are passionate, sharp, impossible to fool, deeply alive. And all of that may be true. But praise can hide a cost. When your emotional radar is always on, rest can feel unnatural, softness can feel unsafe, and silence can feel like the beginning of loss. Notice how subtle that is. The same inner fire that gives you courage can also make you carry yesterday into today. The same gift that helps you read a room can make you overread a pause. This is why your task is not to become colder. It is to become clearer. Not smaller, clearer. Not numb, clearer. When your fire no longer answers every echo as if it were an emergency, it becomes what it was meant to be from the start. Warmth, vitality, direction, and truth. Today, choose one emotionally charged moment and delay your reaction by exactly 12 minutes. During those 12 minutes, place one hand on your chest, breathe slowly, and write 3 short lines. What happened? What I felt? What I assumed? Then circle the line that is only an assumption. This small act matters more than it seems. It teaches your fire to illuminate, not consume. It shows your instinct that it can still be wise without becoming a warning siren. And if this feels personal, that is because option 1 often belongs to people who are stronger than they look and more tired than they admit. If you choose option 2, this message usually appears when your emotional intelligence was shaped by restraint, by silence, by the strange skill of feeling deeply while showing almost nothing. This fox is cold to the eye, but not empty. That matters. In popular Jungian language, cold symbols often do not speak of absence. They speak of preservation. They speak of a feeling that had to be protected, slowed down, sealed away, because at some point being open felt too costly. So if this fox pulled you first, there is often an inner conflict already living in you, a quiet battle between desire and fear. One part of you wants closeness, truth, warmth, real contact. Another part steps back, watches carefully, measures the risk, and says not yet, not too much, not where anyone can touch the center. Stay with me, because this is where the shadow begins to speak. The light in this pattern is clear. You are observant. You notice subtle changes. You do not spill yourself carelessly. You can hold emotion without turning every feeling into drama. But the shadow of this gift is distance. The shadow can turn wisdom into withdrawal. It can make caution look like peace when it is really fear wearing a calm face. That is the tension inside option 2. You may look composed while something in you is standing behind glass, wanting to be reached and fearing what will happen if it is. Think of an ordinary scene. Someone close to you asks a direct question at the end of a long day. Are you upset with me? The room is quiet. The light is low. You feel the answer rise immediately. Yes, a little. I felt dismissed. I wanted more from you. But instead of saying that, you pause, give a small smile and say, I am just tired. The conversation moves on. Nothing breaks, nothing burns. From the outside, it looks smooth. Inside, however, a small piece of truth freezes over. This is how option 2 often lives in daily life. Not through loud conflict, but through delayed honesty. Not through chaos, but through controlled disappearance. And here comes the deeper layer, so pay attention to this. People with this pattern are often praised for being mature, balanced, hard to shake, easy to trust in a crisis. They become the one who keeps the room steady. But steadiness can become a mask. In Jungian terms, the persona learns to value composure, while the shadow stores grief, tenderness, longing, anger, and need in a colder room behind the visible self. Over time, the person starts identifying with the outer stillness and forgetting the life underneath it. That is why this fox is not simply about distance. It is about the cost of being unreadable for too long. The mini-climax is here. The very shield that once protected your depth can slowly block the warmth you were hoping to receive. The fear says, if I reveal too much, I may lose control. The desire says, if I reveal nothing, I may lose connection, and both are trying to protect you. That is why this choice is so personal. It often belongs to people who are not less emotional than others, but more careful with the doorway. So do not misread yourself. Your reserve is not failure. It may be intelligence shaped by old weather. But it does not have to remain frozen in that form. Today, take 15 minutes alone with no phone and write one honest message you have been withholding from someone important, even if you do not send it yet. Spend 5 minutes naming exactly what you feel, 5 minutes naming exactly what you fear would happen if you said it, and 5 minutes rewriting the message in one calm, simple, human paragraph. This matters because it trains your inner world to move again. It reminds the part of you behind the glass that truth can travel without shattering everything. And if this stirred something in you, that is because option 2 often appears when the heart is still alive, still hopeful, and still waiting for permission to thaw. If you could choose 3, it would usually be because some quiet part of you is tired of adapting to everyone else and is beginning to ache for a life that feels more honest. This fox does not arrive with fire or ice. It arrives in the middle, warm, watchful, balanced, almost gentle. That is why it is so easy to misunderstand. In a Jungian sense, option 3 often belongs to the person whose emotional intelligence was built through reading the room, softening the edges, and becoming what was needed before becoming what was true. The schema here is subtle. Keep harmony and you stay connected. Stay easy and you stay loved. Stay useful and no one leaves. At first, that sounds wise. In daily life, it even looks admirable. You know how to calm tension, how to make difficult people feel comfortable, how to absorb a little discomfort so the moment does not break apart. But stay with me, because this is where the deeper pattern begins. When the persona becomes the agreeable one, the reasonable one, the flexible one, something else is often pushed into the shadow. Desire, anger, preference, the simple right to say no without fear, and then avoidance starts dressing itself as kindness. You say you're being mature, but sometimes you are only disappearing in a very polite way. Picture a real scene. At work, a meeting is ending, a deadline is being moved, responsibilities are shifting, and someone asks whether you can take on one more task because you are always so reliable. You already know your answer. Your body knows before your mouth does. You are tired. Your week is full. You do not want to say yes. But the old pattern moves faster than your truth. You smile, nod, and hear yourself say, "Sure, I can handle it." The room relaxes. Everyone is relieved. You look calm. Maybe you even look generous. Then you walk home carrying a strange heaviness, not because the task is impossible, but because once again you left yourself out of the agreement. This is option 3, not drama, not collapse, a slow leak of self. In relationships, it can look just as ordinary. You say, whatever you want is fine when it is not fine. You wait for the other person to guess what matters to you. You call it patience, you call it love. Yet the shadow keeps score and resentment grows in silence because the self that never speaks eventually starts to feel unseen. Here's an unexpected twist. The real conflict is not between you and other people. It is between the loyal persona you built to preserve connection and the buried self that wants to live without translation. That is why this choice feels so personal. You are not weak. You are highly attuned. You learn to survive through emotional nuance. You learn to sense what keeps peace. But a gift can become a prison when it is used against your own clarity. The deeper Jungian movement here is not to become colder or harsher. It is to integrate, to let the agreeable self and the honest self belong to the same person, to stop treating directness like danger, to stop confusing avoidance with wisdom. See what happens next. The moment you choose one clear truth, even a small one, your whole inner world begins to reorganize. Today, choose one decision you have delayed for at least a week. Set a timer for 15 minutes. Write your real answer in one sentence. Send one message that reflects that answer. And complete the first practical step before the timer ends. No softening, no extra explanation, just one committed movement. This matters because every fulfilled commitment to yourself weakens the old schema and strengthens a new one. Little by little, your voice stops feeling risky. Your no stops feeling cruel. Your yes stops being automatic. And the fox you chose begins to reveal its hidden gift. Not just adaptation, but conscious balance. Not just sensitivity, but self-respect. Not just reading the world, but finally allowing the world to read the real you. If you chose 4, this usually appears when control has become your safest form of love, and surrender feels far too close to loss. This fox carries dignity, command, elegance, even a kind of inner royalty. But stay with me, because what looks composed on the outside often hides a very private struggle underneath. In simple Jungian language, this is the pattern of a strong persona built to hold everything together, while the shadow guards what feels too risky to reveal. The shadow here is not weakness. It is the fear that if you loosen your grip, even for a moment, something important will slip away. Respect, stability, image, direction, maybe even the version of yourself you worked hard to become. That is why this choice is so charged. It often belongs to people who learned early that being reliable was safer than being spontaneous, that being needed was safer than being vulnerable, and that staying in control was the best way to avoid the pain of change. Pay attention to this, because this pattern can look like strength for a very long time. And yes, it is strength. You can lead, you can stay calm in pressure, you can think clearly when others are overwhelmed, you can make decisions, carry responsibility, and hold the emotional weight of a room without asking for applause. But there is a limit hidden inside that gift. The same structure that makes you steady can make you rigid. The same self-command that protects you can quietly isolate you. You do this in more situations than you usually admit to yourself. You tell yourself you are being practical, but sometimes you are only avoiding the discomfort of uncertainty. You call it discipline, but sometimes it is fear of what might surface if you stop managing everything so tightly. Think of an ordinary scene. Someone close to you asks a simple question. What do you really want right now? It should be easy, but your mind does not go to desire first. It goes to consequences. What is reasonable? What is efficient? What keeps things stable? Or maybe at work a change is proposed, a new role, a new method, a new direction, and instead of asking whether it feels alive, you immediately begin scanning for what could be lost. Time, status, order, familiar ground. This is option 4 in daily life. Not loud panic, not visible chaos, but a quiet refusal to let life move before you have measured it. Here is the deeper tension. For Jung, the shadow grows where the conscious self becomes too one-sided. If your identity is built around mastery, competence, and control, then the shadow begins carrying what does not fit that image: need, dependency, grief, confusion, change. And the more polished the persona becomes, the more frightening surrender can seem. But surrender is not always collapse. Sometimes it is simply truth without performance. Sometimes it is allowing a real answer to exist before the perfect answer is ready. That may be the exact lesson hidden in your choice. You are not being asked to become careless. You are being asked to notice where control has stopped protecting you and started limiting you. There is a very important difference between holding your life and gripping it. One creates direction, the other creates tension, and you carry that tension more often than you let on. That is why this fox matters. It does not only reveal your strength, it reveals the cost of always needing to remain above the moment. So listen closely. The next step is not complicated, but it is precise. Today, choose one situation you have been managing through delay, ambiguity, or overthinking, and give it a clear yes or a clear no before the day ends. No half promise, no softened maybe, no elegant escape. Just one honest answer that closes the loop. This matters because each clear decision loosens the old bond between control and safety. It teaches your inner world that change is not always a threat, and that you do not lose yourself every time you stop tightening your grip. Sometimes you find yourself there instead. If you chose 5, this usually appears when your inner life is already pushing against an old order that no longer fits, even if part of you is still trying to keep everything looking normal. This fox speaks of movement, of transformation, of a quiet rebellion that begins beneath the surface long before anyone else can see it. Stay with me, because this choice is not random. It often belongs to people who feel that something in them has outgrown an old role, an old fear, an old routine, but who have not yet fully crossed the line into change. In simple Jungian language, this is close to individuation, the courage to become more whole by integrating the parts of yourself that were split off, delayed, hidden, or postponed in order to survive. The old self says, stay where it is familiar. The deeper self says, it is time to stop circling and start becoming. That tension is the heart of option 5. You may look calm on the outside, but inside there is often a strong current moving. A new truth wants room. A buried instinct wants expression. A life chapter that once protected you now feels too small to carry who you are becoming. Pay attention to that, because this pattern is not about chaos for its own sake. It is about life trying to reorganize itself from the inside. The gift in this choice is powerful. You can sense change before it fully arrives. You feel when something has expired emotionally, even if logic has not caught up yet. You are often the first to notice when a habit has become dead weight, when a relationship is running on repetition, or when a version of yourself has become a costume. But the shadow is just as real. Sometimes you stay in the feeling of transformation without taking the step that would make it real. You imagine the conversation, but do not begin it. You know the decision, but keep postponing it. You sense the habit that has to end, but keep giving it one more day, then one more week, then one more explanation. Think of an everyday moment. There is a message you need to send, a boundary you need to name, a routine you know is draining you, or a truth about your work, your love life, or your direction that has already become obvious in private. You feel it every morning for a second before the noise begins. Then the day fills up, and once again the insight stays elegant but unreal. That is where option 5 becomes deeply personal. Your psyche is not asking for another perfect insight. It is asking for embodiment, not another symbolic beginning, but an actual crossing. Here is the internal turning point, so do not miss it. The part of you that wants change is not unstable. It may be the most honest part of you. The discomfort you feel is not proof that you should wait. Sometimes it is proof that the old structure knows it is losing control. That is why this fox carries such force. It reveals emotional intelligence in motion, the kind that no longer wants to manage pain only by adapting to it, but by integrating it and moving beyond it. So the question is no longer what do you understand? The real question is, what will you now enact? Today, choose one postponed truth and make it irreversible before the day ends. Send the message. Cancel the habit. Set the boundary. Change the plan in one visible way that your future self cannot quietly undo tonight. Keep it small, but make it final. This matters because every irreversible step tells the unconscious that change is no longer a fantasy. It is now a fact. And once that begins, the old order does not fully return. Something in you already knows that. That is why you chose 5. What all 5 choices reveal is not 5 separate personalities, but 5 different ways the psyche learns to survive before it learns to feel free. One person protects through speed, another protects through distance, another protects through adaptation, another protects through control, another protects through change. The forms look different, but the pattern underneath is often the same. Avoidance, repetition, hidden fear, and the quiet hope that one day protection will finally become peace. This is why a symbolic choice can feel so personal. In simple Jungian language, the image you choose often points toward a habit of the soul, a repeated inner movement between the self you show, the feeling you hide, and the deeper truth still waiting to be lived. The persona says, "This is how I stay safe in the world." The shadow says, "This is what I had to bury to survive that safety." And life keeps repeating the same emotional lessons until those two begin to meet. Stay with me, because this matters more than it seems. Your choice was never about a fox alone. It was about the emotional style that became familiar to you, and familiar patterns are powerful because they can feel like identity, even when they began as protection. That is the deeper folk psychology inside this test. People repeat what once helped them. The mind returns to what feels known. The heart builds a home around old defenses. A person may call it instinct, maturity, patience, strength, or independence, and sometimes it is all of those things. But sometimes it is also an old fear wearing a beautiful name. That is not a failure. It is simply the human way of adapting before integrating. And that is where the good news begins. The moment you can see the pattern, you are already no longer trapped inside it in the same way. Awareness does not solve everything at once, but it breaks the spell of unconscious repetition. It opens a door. It gives language to what used to feel like fate. So if this reading stirred something in you, take that seriously. Not as a verdict, but as a beginning. You are not being reduced to one symbol. You are being invited to notice what part of you has been carrying too much for too long, and what part of you is ready to live with more truth. That is a real accomplishment. Many people go through years repeating the same emotional loop without ever naming it. You paused long enough to look. You listened long enough to recognize yourself. That already matters. And it is why this moment can become a new beginning if you let it. Not a dramatic reinvention, not a promise you will forget tomorrow, but a quieter turning, a more conscious step, a different relationship with the part of you that used to act automatically. The real test begins after this video. That sentence matters because insight alone changes very little until it enters behavior. Understanding is a door, but integration is the walk through it. Today, choose one small action that goes against your old pattern and supports your deeper self instead. If you usually rush, pause. If you usually hide, say one honest thing. If you usually adapt, make one clear choice. If you usually control, allow one plain answer. If you usually postpone change, take one irreversible step. Keep it simple, but make it real. This is how a pattern loosens. This is how the shadow stops ruling from the dark. This is how what was once only survival begins to turn into consciousness, dignity, and a life that feels more like your own. If this touched something real in you, do not leave in silence. Please indicate your chosen number in the comments. Please type your name. Make this moment visible. Give your choice a place outside your mind, because when you write it down, it stops being just a passing reaction and becomes something you can recognize, remember, and return to. Sometimes that is how change begins, not with a dramatic promise, but with one honest sign that says, this is the pattern I saw in myself, and I am ready to face it. If one part of this reading felt uncomfortably true, if one sentence stayed with you longer than the rest, if you felt seen in a way you did not expect, then keep going with that feeling. Do not brush it aside. There is usually a reason your attention stays where your deeper self wants to speak. Like this. Not as a habit, but as a way of marking the moment and saying, yes, this reached me. Subscribe if you want to keep exploring these hidden patterns, these symbols, these quiet truths that often stay buried until something simple brings them to light. There is a version of you that becomes clearer every time you stop running from what you already know inside. Let this be one of those moments. Let this be the point where you stop calling your pattern a personality and start seeing it as a doorway. And before you go, stay open for 1 second more, because the next choice may reveal the layer underneath this one, the deeper thread, the piece that explains why you feel what you feel and repeat what you repeat. Watch the next test on your screen right now.